Came in slow again. Hey, everybody.
I'm not going to hum this time because everyone made fun of me last time.
John could not be here, and they said, how do you want to set up the chairs so that it's not obvious that John is not here? I said, please set up the chairs so it's obvious that John's not here.
I asked for the cutout of Gus. But,
oh, John, you're so cute.
But cutout Gus's knees are broken, so I guess we can't use him.
Oh, it's fine. Forget Gus. Okay, so this week we are talking about our race through China.
Yes.
Is through the appropriate word? Up to and including China.
Through is appropriate.
Appropriate?
Yes, it's appropriate.
So, I mean, this is, if you're watching this, I'm assuming you've seen The Amazing Race where we are up to this point.
I certainly hope so, because, I mean, we spoiled the crap out of this show if you haven't.
This is the 11th and, final leg of the elimination part of the race. So this is the last country.
Yes, it's the penultimate leg of the entire race, and it's the last time a team is eliminated.
I just want to say something. A couple years ago, this thing went around with penultimate, where people were saying penultimate, and then people got kind of hooked on what the definition of penultimate meant, which is the second to last, essentially.
Okay.
But people were using it as the ultimate thing. That was the incorrect usage of it, and people started to correct one another. Now I feel like people go out of their way to use the word penultimate. I've been reading that nonstop this entire week about this being the penultimate leg.
Using one word is way easier than saying it's the second to last leg. It saves you so many syllables.
We didn't fight in the whole race, and now we're going to fight right here.
There's nothing wrong with penultimate.
Okay, so we headed from Bali, where we had our second leg in Bali. Kurt and Brody were eliminated in that leg, and then we were off to Shenzhen, China, which is the Silicon Valley of China.
Yeah, it's a newly built-up city. I guess as little as 30 years ago, it was
crazy,
sort of backwards town, and now it's one of the biggest cities in China. It's like an hour away from Hong Kong, really coming up, and it's obvious because they have a lot of very, very new, ultra-modern architecture, as evidenced by our very first clue, which was in the airport. It was in the departure hall of the Shenzhen airport, which is, you don't get to see a lot of it in the episode. It's like a super modern design, and it, to be fair, for us running through it, looked amazing.
No, it was really cool.
It was very, very impressive.
In fact, when we ran out, our clue was to get the clue, or find our next clue at the departure hall of the Shenzhen airport.
And
we all ran underneath it, basically.
Right, where are departure halls? You always depart from the top floor. Instead of going up to a departure hall, we just ran around like idiots in what turned out to be the bus terminal.
Yeah, we ran straight out, and then we tried to find some currency exchange places there.
And we accidentally ran into all the other teams.
Well, no, we found the one currency exchange downstairs, and Sherry and Cole started following us. Then we went back to the departure hall, split up from Sherry and Cole. We went upstairs. We found the clue in the departure hall, then ended up coming down to currency exchange in that place because the other one we found was closed. And that's where we had this thing where this kind of starts off the episode where we run into Tyler and Corey and Sherry and Cole at Currency Exchange.
Yeah.
Which I don't even know where the dancers were at that point.
They'd already got their clue and they were gone because the dancers were the only team that were able to exchange their leg money in Bali for Chinese currency.
Yeah, so one of the things that we would do is exchanging currency is something that can definitely slow you down. So there were teams that had different strategies. Like some people would be sitting in an airport gate, and we're all going to the same country as everyone else on the plane. And so sometimes we were able to convince people to give us money as an exchange rate for the currency that we had. Is that what the dancers did?
No, I think they found the one currency exchange that actually would give them Chinese currency.
Really?
Yeah. I don't know what secret they
One
found.
for the Balinese, was it a Balinese dollar? Was that what it was there?
I don't know.
Or was it Balinese rupee, I want to say?
Rupiah?
Rupiah, yeah.
I'm going to look it up.
Was.
If only I had an internet right here.
Nah, you're fine. So we got in there, and then this was probably the point in the episode that
the
really
Rupiah. I did it.
You nailed it.
Nailed it.
So this was the point in the episode where I think it really kind of set the tone for the rest of the episode because, and this was actually they really set the tone for the episode because this was also the preview clip that they released as well. We walked up, and from our perspective, we walked up, and Corey said to us, do you guys want to exchange currency with us, and then we'll go on another search?
Which was, for clues, which was weird because we were holding our clue. You had it in your hand at the time.
You know, some of the commenters pointed out to me, that's not that weird. We have clues all the time, though. By the end of the leg, we have 6 clues.
Yes,
it wasn't necessarily the clue we just found.
True, but that's the most likely scenario if you're running around with one in your hand, when we already knew where we needed to look for our next clue.
But apparently, the dancers and Tyler and Corey had both gotten the clue together already. And it's weird that the dancers left because they ended up on the same bus.
They did.
And Tyler and Corey had to wait behind Sherry and Cole at the currency exchange to get their money changed. But I guess it was just timing of the buses.
Because
Anyway,
the buses left like every 5 minutes.
Sherry and Cole probably just asked if they knew where the clue was. And Tyler and Corey were saying, oh, we don't know. I don't think they directly said that they didn't have
They
it.
didn't. So they said I think Sherry and Cole asked if they'd already been upstairs.
Yeah.
And Tyler and Corey were like, it's crazy up
Chaos.
there.
It's chaos.
Yeah. So they didn't say like specifically, no, we didn't necessarily. They didn't give them information.
No, yeah. And so then when we came up, I had no idea that they were doing this with Sherry
Right.
and
They
Cole.
didn't talk this over with us.
And there'd been a couple times already where it's like, gamesmanship was getting pretty heavy. So when we walked up, we thought someone was trying to give us incorrect information of like, we don't have our clue and we don't know where the clues are. And it's like, well, we know
Like,
where the clues are.
We got it.
Yeah.
But I don't know what you're talking about.
And so then Sherry and Cole left from there, and they went to go find the clue. Tyler and Corey changed money right in front of us. There was a interview that they did, I guess, after the leg, where they talked about they were upset with us because we ruined their plan of some kind. But it doesn't really.
Do we need like a secret handshake of like, hey, we're lying right now, play along? Because we had no idea. I thought they were trying to misdirect us.
No, we both thought that.
And we weren't falling for it. And so that's where we're like, I don't understand. Like, what do you mean you haven't found your clue? There's not a lot of clues left. So
Well,
most
ultimately,
people have found them.
ultimately, it's like I don't know what the problem is because the end result is if you don't give Sherry and Cole the information, right? I mean, that's the goal of that conversation.
Right.
Sherry and Cole left. They asked the currency exchange lady, and then they got the information and left with that. So they didn't give up the information to them. It looks in the episode like we said it to them. None of us seem to remember us doing that, though.
no.
Yeah.
No, I think they got the information from the currency exchange people.
Yeah.
I don't know. Maybe they confirmed it with us.
Maybe they did.
But yeah, we didn't go out of our way to help them on this leg. We didn't help anybody on this leg.
Yeah, but so then we ended up on the buses. Tyler and Corey, the dancers, they ended up on the same bus. They left. We
barely missed that bus.
We barely
too.
missed that bus. And so we caught the very next bus after them. Sherry and Cole had a chance to catch up to us at that bus. And then we went to the Windows of the World.
Yeah, so we had to catch a bus that took us to a train station, like the
Right.
which was the exchange, and then we had to get on a train and take that to. The clue was to go to the Eiffel Tower.
Right.
None of us were held up by that one. We all did enough research in the airport. We were obsessive about the research. So, of course, we researched in the airport what all of the points of interest could be for Shenzhen.
Right.
And one of the big ones was a theme park called Window of the World, which is a theme park where they build small-scale models of iconic locations from the rest of the world, one of the major ones being an Eiffel Tower.
It's very cool. It's a very cool place. It's a lot cooler place, I'm sure, for Chinese nationals to visit in China. Going to China and then going to a place where you see landmarks from all over the world.
From everywhere but China?
Yeah, we were looking forward to going to China. We're running up a small replica of the Eiffel Tower. But we actually had a little bit of trouble finding the first clue because the Eiffel Tower, we knew it was somewhere around there, so we were looking for it on the ground floor, ran around that a little bit, and we saw Tyler and Corey and the dancers there. But we knew as early as the bus that Tyler and Corey and the dancers, they had been working together the entire race.
Yeah,
and we actually mentioned that on the bus to Sherry and Cole, well before the Roadblock Challenge.
Yeah, there were a lot of challenges that they did together. So there were the flags in Geneva that they did together.
Right.
There was, what else?
They kind of worked together on the detour in Georgia with the hazelnuts.
Yeah.
Remember, because Matt and Dana went back and forth a couple times.
And then they ended up leaving with them and going to do the wine one.
That's right.
And then I think Corey might have given Dana some advice on the kites in Bali too, but I'm not 100% sure about that.
But it wasn't a surprise
it wasn't
by any
new.
means. Yeah, it wasn't a surprise. And then we actually, we saw them working in a group when we were at the Eiffel Tower and they left. And there's a behind the scenes.
I remember we were like, hey, and they just like ran off, just.
That was the
down.
behind the scenes video. It's called Grade School Socializing. And I reference in there, it's like trying to interface with them was kind of like being in grade school and socializing when, when you try to talk to people and they're in a group and you're not part of the group and they just kind of like give you a blank wall. Like they
just sort of like turn
turn
the shoulder
away.
like this
Yeah.
and pretend they didn't hear you at all.
There was some of that. So I knew that they were definitely working together and that we were going to be on our own. Or that we could work with Sherry and Cole. But I just, there's 4 teams left. So.
Well, and you get into a scenario too, like we had in Chamonix when we finished our detour and we got to the top, and it turns out Sherry and Cole were there, and she was like, "Do you want to work together?" And we were like, "No, we're racing each other for last right now."
Yeah, well, it's one of those things. It's like in a situation like Chamonix, we could have said, yeah, let's work together, knowing full well we get to the mat at the same time, we just outrun them to the mat, because that happened to us more than a few times with Brody and Kurt. They're just a faster team than we are, and there's not much you can do about that. There's, I think we outran Brody and Kurt one time in the whole race, and that was in an airport in Cartagena.
Yeah, that was for about 5 seconds down a ramp.
Yeah, Ashley took off. She was like Sonic the Hedgehog.
I'm pretty sure I got some air.
Dude, you were flying. But so we could have done that, but we always felt like, in a situation like that, I wasn't going to tell Sherry and Cole, yeah, let's work together, and then know we were going to pull like something on them at the end, even though we all realize that's the strategy that everybody has long term. You look at stuff like the Brody and Kurt U-turn, it's like, well, that's a strong team. That's one part of it. The other part of it is you want teams that you can beat. You're also kind of protecting those teams and coming along with you. And, and Sherry and Cole, admittedly, we underestimated them. That was a team that we identified of like, we would love to be in the finals with Sherry and Cole, and so that was a team that's like, we would be very happy if they made it along. At the same time, we weren't really working with them in, this leg in China.
No, we were like, on friendly terms with them, lots of respect for them, but we weren't making any kind of coordinated effort.
I mean, even going back so far as Armenia, when Sherry was stuck under the oil change and she couldn't get the oil filter off, I went under there to help her because I knew that Tyler was at the end of that line, and I thought if Sherry and Cole can get off the ramp faster, they'll get to the mat. It turned out to be a non-elimination, keep on racing legs, but at the same time, I was still thinking about it. I want to mention something else about Armenia that I don't think we talked about. When we left the Armenia Challenge, we showed up. Kurt had just left with Brody. When we showed up, I did the oil change. We got off. We got the cab down. We had to drive in the cab that we did the oil change on, which was...
That's a test of faith right there.
It really is.
Sure.
That is really, testing your faith in your own oil change skills. But we found, in the mud, Brody and Kurt's notebook. Did we ever talk about that?
I don't know that we did. We did? We did?
Oh, we did? Okay, great. We already talked about it. Yeah. So those are little things that happen in the race where it's like you have an opportunity to do something, but Brody and Kurt didn't want to exchange their express pass with us for that. So, we just moved on. But I was trying to help Sherry at that point in time because I thought, we'd get Tyler, further back in the pack.
Sure.
They're a very strong team, so...
Yeah, so we got to the roadblock, and this is one where, because we had a double roadblock leg, it was a forced roadblock.
When we got the clue, it said who had to do it.
Yeah.
It said that this roadblock has to be done by Tyler, Burnie, Dana, and Sherry.
Yeah, normally when you get to this point, you could still have like one choice left, but we got locked down based on the roadblock in the last leg.
I also want to, it just goes to show, a lot of people gave Sherry and Cole a lot of grief early on because Cole was making Sherry do all the roadblocks, but very clearly, Sherry had done less than Cole by the end of this leg.
Because she had to do this
she had to do this Windows of the World challenge that we did.
Yeah, I mean, he did both. He did, 2 in Bali, so he was doing great.
Yeah. So anyway, the challenge was we had a passport book that had 6 riddles in it, and we had to figure out from the riddle what the landmark was, and then go to that landmark, and at pretty much, like 80% of the landmarks, they had placed these little red velvet boxes, and when you opened it, there was a sticker for that location. You put in your passport book. When you got all 6, you went and checked in and saw how you did. And so we were running around. It was very clear from the get-go that Dana and Matt were working together, which...
Dana and Tyler.
Sorry, Dana and Tyler were working together. Green team and the black team were working together. And that was a huge advantage for that challenge because in that challenge, you had 2 sets of eyes, you had 2 sets of legs, and then more importantly, you can split up. If Ashley and I work on a detour together, you are not allowed to split up. You can't go separate directions. Let's meet back here after we each get one.
No, you have to stay together.
But you can do that if you're different teams. So it was I realized immediately this roadblock was geared for people working together, and we were going to be at a huge disadvantage.
Yeah.
So started running around, kept running into them. One thing I discovered right away was that the stickers, when you peel them off and put them in your book, you're left with a little sticker back that the sticker came on, like a little piece of wax paper. They were taking theirs and putting them back in the box as trash. So when I opened a box, I think the Pyramids of Giza was one of the first ones I went to. I saw 2 used stickers in the box, and I immediately thought, oh, well, now I can see what they're selecting. I can kind of work off of what they're doing if there's one that I'm stuck on. So I grabbed the stickers and shoved them in my pocket so that Sherry and Cole essentially couldn't do the same thing, and then moved on from there. I toyed with the idea at one point of putting sticker backs in other boxes, but that would have taken time. Way too much effort, but I toyed with the idea for a little bit. And what was it like? Because you were watching us run around.
Yeah, so the roadblock took you like an hour, and we were sitting more towards the entrance, and it was the four of us. It was me and Matt and Corey and Cole, and I mean, we were relaxing. And so, at the time, I asked Corey, I was like, why did you guys try to misdirect us with a clue? And he was like, no, we were trying to misdirect Sherry and Cole, and we were like, you didn't tell us any of this. So we were just chatting most of the time. And then every now and again, someone would go running by like a crazy person.
Yeah.
And I'd be like, how are you doing? I have no idea.
I mean, this is a park that was about the size of like a Six Flags or a Disney World. And there were all these little exhibits, and they were arranged through the park like the geography of the world. So the North American exhibit was across the park from the Asia exhibit, for instance, and then Europe was between the two of them.
Which absolutely came into play because at one point, you offered to exchange information with Tyler to see like who had what stamps.
Yeah. So them working together, I immediately knew that it was a challenge, that I had to go up against teams that were working together, and I was working on my own. But that just kind of motivated me to do better. I was, like she said, it was an hour. We were sprinting back and forth between these locations. Imagine like you're at a park and you finish the log ride, and then you immediately sprint to the roller coaster. And then you just keep doing that over and over again for an hour. You're just sprinting from one thing to the next.
Except without actually going on the roller coaster, because that's a break.
Yeah, no, you don't go on the roller coaster. You just stand there and read a little plaque and see if your clue is right.
Yeah.
The plaques would definitely indicate if you had the right thing. But there were so many of these exhibits. And
There's like 130 of them.
And there were times when you could see it and you couldn't get to it. You like had to find a special path up a hill to get to it. Vatican City in particular was really tough. And Vatican City was like, I was in the Europe part of the park, and I was like, it's gotta be here somewhere. There's only 30 of these things, and I was just like, I was running everywhere in there trying to find it. So it was just nuts.
Yeah, so we'd see, like every now and again we'd see someone run by. We saw Sherry, I think, twice, but for the most part, you guys were invisible to us, so we had no idea what was going on. We were just like waiting, hoping for the best.
Right.
But you ran by at one point and said you almost had it. So that's when I started getting your bag ready to go.
Mm-hmm. That was when I was on my way to the Coliseum. So one of the first things that happens was I made the comment. I go, look at these jackasses over here working together, because these two teams. And I was calling out the fact that I was working on my own. And then I saw Dana and Tyler probably 2 or 3 minutes later. And I said, I even said to him, I said, I just called you guys jackasses, but I want you to know I meant it out of love. And Tyler was like, whatever. So and then goes running off. And so it was just a fun day of kicking back and forth. And I think people who watch our content, like Rooster Teeth, they understand like calling somebody a jackass is I would never
it's
do
an
that.
endearment.
I wouldn't do that with like a team that I wasn't comfortable with, for sure. Like I would never have called Darius and Cam a couple of jackasses just because I don't know them that well.
You don't know them. They're strangers.
Yeah, but it's like Gavin, who I know really well. It's like abuse that guy on a regular basis. It's just it's just part of it. So we're kicking stuff back and forth. And so I ran off to find my last clue. The one that took me the longest actually was the Merlion, because I just didn't know that landmark. I just had never heard of it. And do you remember when I explained to you what I was doing when I was talking to people?
Yeah, so that's one of the other hard things about this challenge is that you were in a theme park, which was
a theme park
geared
in China.
Towards tourists. So even the other people there that you could theoretically ask for information wouldn't know anything because they were also tourists.
Not only can you not communicate with them, because it's the hardest language barrier we've run into yet. They were all tourists and didn't know where anything was because they're in an amusement park. They're in like a destination, so it's like nobody there. I asked so many people for directions, and they chose exhibits that didn't appear on the map.
Well, apparently you had a different map than other teams.
Well, I had the map in the park, like on a kiosk. They all had these handheld maps. I have no clue where they got them. That would have been great to have one of those maps. But the maps for the park didn't have every exhibit. They just had general, here's Europe, and here's this. And it's like, I finally found the Coliseum on one of them, and that's when I went bolting on for the Coliseum to try it. But man, I asked, and this is the start of the day, I asked so many people for directions in that park, like, do you know where this is? Do you know where that is? And then when I was trying to figure out the clue for the statue that has the body of a fish and the head of a lion.
Weren't you doing like charades, like head, body, fish?
That's what I did. That was it. The fish. That was my symbol for fish. And they were just like, you're a lunatic. They were just like, people were just looking at me like, what is wrong with you? I stopped. I don't know if I told you this. I asked so many people, and I finally said, why am I asking all these tourists? They don't know where anything is. It wasn't on their maps. They were showing me their maps. I'm like, okay. So I tried to ask people who were like groundskeepers working. They were having nothing to do with me. They were like, they would not even acknowledge my presence.
Wow.
I stopped after like the 10th person who didn't know where anything was. I found a lady walking around with a portable speaker and a headset leading a tour group. I stopped her. I was looking for the Vatican. I stopped her. She spoke English, a little bit of English. I asked her where the Vatican was. No idea. I'm like, you're a tour guide. I wasn't yelling or anything. I was like, how is this possible? She even, with the tour group there, she gave me her phone, called somebody who spoke English. I said, I'm just trying to find the Vatican here in the park. Can you please ask her? And I handed, and she like, listen, and goes, like that, no. And honestly, one of the camera guys, when I brought it up later, he goes, well, you gotta put it from their perspective. It's like, she gets a phone call from a guy speaking English, goes, I'm looking for the Vatican. I'm looking for the Vatican in China. So it was just from the get-go, language barrier and everything else was tough.
Anyway, we'd had language barriers before, people in Indonesia, there was a little bit of English, particularly with the taxi drivers. Georgia was tough for the language barrier, but nowhere.
Armenia was tough with the lavash challenge too.
Yeah.
She was trying to explain to us how to cook the lavash.
Yeah, but nowhere was as hard for us as China. That language barrier was opaque.
Yeah, and I gotta say, it's like, the stuff like, it plays really well on TV, the back and forth between me and Tyler, but the people who were not having it were just most of the citizens of Shenzhen. We would run up and ask questions. They'd be like, no, thank you. I don't want anything to do with whatever this is. Mm-hmm. And so we got shut down a lot of times, too, or just people would, beeline and walk away from us. I don't know if it's a cultural thing or it's just like we're just running around like lunatics. It was one of the two.
I mean, we were pretty sure the entire race, we looked like insane people.
Probably. And especially after that challenge, it's like I sweated through my shirt and everything like that.
Yeah, but the good news is you sweated all the way through it, so it wasn't just like sweat dark here and then like dry and lighter here. It was just all sweat dark.
It was just
so it was all
gross.
one color. It was wonderful.
Okay, well, we haven't made it through the roadblock yet. So at one point, we were all looking for things. It was clear that Tyler and Dana were still stuck on one. And so I walked up to Tyler and I said, all right, do you want to do this? Do you want to trade information? Like, if you see me walk by and I go, how many do you have? Do you want to say? Do you want to talk? How many do you have? Because I was asking how many do you have because I wanted to offer to trade one that I had that he didn't have, but I also didn't want to give him his last one.
Right.
And so when I asked him that, he then said, well, what are you looking for? And I was like, all right, well, I'm looking for the Coliseum, or not a Coliseum. I said, I'm looking for the battleground where they reenact battles. And he was like, I think that's in the North American exhibit, or the American...
The Native American.
Native American one, I think is what he said, all the way across the park. But I had a feeling at this point in time that it was the Coliseum. I just, in my head, I know what the Coliseum is. I just didn't know they reenacted battles there. I thought that's just where they had battles. Like, they would have gladiator matches and that's it. And then people keep reminding me that the Russell Crowe movie, they had these, reenactments of battles. They reenact battles where people actually die.
Right.
That's the shows that they would do. But I just thought, it's just gladiators in a pit with a tiger or against other, fighters. So, ran off to the Coliseum like that. Before I go across this park, I'm going to find the Coliseum and go there.
Well, you also had one funny thing where you asked how many he had, and they said, oh, not very many. And you walked away and you're like, that means they're almost done.
Yeah, that's I immediately got on guard because I knew they were almost done. I didn't see any harm in telling him what I was looking for because it's not like he can stop me, except, maybe misdirect me. Mm-hmm. But I was already on guard for that. When I got to the Coliseum, I opened it up. I see two stickerbacks sticking there.
I knew it.
Well, if you see two stickerbacks, you know that's Tyler and Dana because it can't be Sherry and Dana because then Tyler would get his as well. So
sure.
two stickerbacks, I immediately saw it and said, oh, they've been here. He literally just told me 2 minutes ago to go somewhere else. And I know that they've been to this one already. So that's when I made the comment. It's like, here we go again. Tyler's lying again. Kind of wish I hadn't used the word lie on television, just because I think that word is like...
it sounds kind of vindictive.
It's a loaded word, and I think people have a visceral reaction to it. And I don't think it's indicative of what the situation actually was. I think it's more of... Later in the interviews, I'm saying stuff like misdirection, which I think is that's more of a gamey word. Lie has it's just a charged word.
Yeah.
So anyway, ran up to the passport office, checked in my passport. I was done. We finished the roadblock in first. Ashley had our stuff ready to go. We took off and we went to the train station.
Yeah, and we almost immediately hopped on a train, which was awesome because we were super convinced. We're at least one train ahead. We were really excited about this. It was good to good that you able to pass 2 teams and get out of the roadblock, considering that they'd been working together. We felt really happy about
Which
that.
I think was the story for our team for the whole race. Is I think we did really well in roadblocks, and then we did mediocre in detours. Like, if we ever lost ground, we lost ground in detours, and we made up the ground in roadblocks. That was kind of the trend for our team.
Yeah, most of the times we made up places in a roadblock if there was an opportunity to do so. But yeah, so we got on the train. The train told us to go to Lychee Park and find the Moon Bridge.
Yep.
And so we get on this train. We're super excited because we think we're at least 1 train ahead. We're talking about it, and we're like, oh, it's so great to be in first. They are definitely on the next train, so we've got at least a couple minutes lead.
We just beat 2 teams in the roadblock.
And then the doors open, and we see them all run past.
We see like Tyler and Corey and Dana Matt. They go, Zhoo. I mean, it must have looked like this. It must have looked like, I'm like, yeah, we're super proud. It was one of us in the roadblock against 2 of them, and we came out, and now we're first. There they go, shit. And it was like, and then we just take off running. It was such a funny moment. It was like,
it was like a cartoon.
So then we ended up running through this Lychee Park,
which I feel bad about because
Why?
Because you'd been running for an hour.
Oh, okay.
I was fresh.
Yeah.
And so I was like, all right, we'll run slow, but we're gonna run. And you were exhausted, and I completely failed to take that into account. It would have been nice to have a little bit of like a take it slow, looking for that moon bridge, and be okay falling to third because we had no idea where Sherry was. I hadn't seen her in ages. But we were so caught up in trying to race those 2
The other
teams
2 teams
because
were
they
right
were right there. It was all 3 of our teams in a pack running for this place, trying to find
huge
the moon bridge.
park. We ran in one direction. We knew we were going to this moon bridge.
We ended up going the long way around.
Because there's a lake like right in the middle of it, and it was just an enormous run the whole way. I mean, I could hear the other teams going, forget it, I'm not running any further, I'm just going to walk at this point where I was like, if they walk, I'm going to walk too, because we were all the teams that did the roadblock were exhausted.
Yeah, we got close to the area and everyone was just like staggering to it like,
I mean,
it was so
Tyler
much
and Dana ran as much as I did for the last hour, They're both very good runners. I mean, Dana's obviously clearly in great shape. Tyler is a very good runner. And, but every one of us had to be exhausted. Plus, it's the 11th leg of this thing,
Yeah.
So we're exhausted. So we found it. We got the clue after crossing the moon bridge. And I actually think here, Ash, this was a critical point because I was so tired at this point after running in the roadblock and then running through the park that when we got the clue, there was a marathon right there too.
Yeah, so there were a whole bunch of streets right next to this park. Like literally the streets, like at least 2 of the streets adjacent to the park that bordered it were shut down for this marathon that was going on.
Even for pedestrians, like there were like metal barriers up, like a parade kind of a thing.
Yeah, we had to go down into the subway tunnel and use that to get across the road.
To get to the park.
So we had a detour decision, and that was to either go hang paintings in an art gallery or do a thing with an electric unicycle, which I'd never heard of.
And we decided to do what?
We decided in the park we were going to do the paintings.
We were going to do the paintings, and we didn't know this at the time, but Tyler and Corey and Dana Matt also were going to do the paintings.
Yeah, we didn't hear who was making what decisions, and then so.
But they were both right next to each other. The directions told you to go to the same place, the same art district.
Yes, so we knew the detours were at least close to each other. So we decided. Specifically I decided because you were very tired and you said, I'm too tired, I can't deal with this right now, you need to make the decisions. And I made the decision for us to take the train. Because
I think is critical.
So worried about taxis and traffic.
Sure. No, and I thought it was a good decision. I literally said, you're making this decision for us because I'm so exhausted I can't think straight right now. That was a good decision. That was like a weird moment of clarity in this day where if I just stuck to that and I said, you're team captain, I will not question anything you say. We're going to do whatever you say for the rest of the day. We would have done a lot better at that point. But I was just like, I was so tired, but I had enough time to recover on the train where then I started thinking, but I wasn't fully recovered to think well. So I just suggested like, hey, let's not do the paintings. Let's go do the unicycles.
Well, because you knew what the electric unicycles were. I was picturing an actual unicycle.
Everybody was,
the clue was you had to...
Which, by the way, Darius can ride a unicycle.
Nice.
Yeah, so if he'd have made it through, that'd have been interesting to see.
Nice. Yeah, so the clue was to go, and we would have to learn to ride an electric unicycle, and then carry a briefcase and a cup of coffee on a commute with a group of commuters. And I was terrified of that. But Burnie explained to me, because he knew what they were, that it was standing. So it was like a cross between those little hoverboards that all the kids ride these days that keep setting on fire, and Segway with no handle.
It's an electric stand-on scooter. In my head, it was like a Segway. And the reason I knew that, and this is just like one of the craziest things ever, is that before we went on the race, we did so much preparation, and we would buy things, and like we'd do puzzles and all this, go to puzzle rooms. We went to like indoor skydiving, we went zip lining, tons of stuff. One of the things that I did was I went to buy an electric unicycle, that model, that electric unicycle. I put it in my cart. It was like $850. So I just never pulled the trigger on it.
I mean, that's an expensive investment to make, just to go, like, maybe this will come up, maybe it won't, who knows?
Well, like, we had that balance board that we would play on every night to make sure, like, get our balance up and everything in preparation for the race. And I thought this would be another good thing for that, but it was $850. It's crazy. When we got back from the race, I showed Ashley my shopping cart. It was still in my shopping cart. It was, a month later.
And you were getting ads for it everywhere, because once you go to buy something, then all those ad choices ads come up every other site you go to. You're haunted by electric unicycles.
I literally went and bought like toilet paper on Amazon just so it wouldn't show me the goddamn unicycle anymore. But it's so crazy, and I was like, this is how tired my brain was, and I think it's completely my fault. Like what happened from that point on. The thing is that I knew what the unicycle was, and I thought somehow that was an advantage. It's just like, oh, I know what this is, and everyone's confused, and they don't know what it is, but it's not as bad as you think. And it's like, yeah, it's as bad as you think. Like, we went and got on this thing, and the first thing we had to do was we had to do a wardrobe change, right?
Yeah. So we, after telling me what it was and comparing it to a Segway, I was on the subway. I was like, all right, well, if you think it's that easy, then we'll give it a try, because they're close to each other. And at that time, we made the same determination we made in Dubai, which was
this is going to be faster if it goes well.
If we do this well, it's risky. If it goes well, it's going to be very, very fast. If it doesn't go well, it's going to take a really long time, and we need to bail.
We need to go in if we're not going to like hit this right away. Basically, like the first heat of the racing the camels. If we realize we're not going to make it, get out and do what we did in Dubai. But it's only a block away. And in Dubai, the detours were 20 kilometers away in order to switch.
Yeah.
This was like right there.
So we got there. We found...
we didn't go right there.
No, we didn't.
We got off the train, and we had to stop and ask people for directions at every single block. Yeah. I mean, we literally had in Mandarin where we were going. We'd stop somebody. And this is pretty much how it goes. It's like, can you tell us here where to go here? And they would read it, go, oh yes.
And they go
like that. That was directions that we get.
They like, and it'd be like, I don't know how many of this before you get to this. So
yeah, it was tough.
We went every single block, and we would have to find someone new and ask them where it was. And this takes a while to try to get the communication across. And so I'd say it was 8 blocks.
Yeah.
You think that's accurate?
How many times do you think we stopped and asked for directions in 8 blocks?
12.
No, I don't think it was over.
No,
but I think every time we had to make a turn or go another street, we had to stop and ask directions.
We did. And then it turns out it was really weird, because do you remember one of the final things to get into that area was we had to go into a building, down the stairs, and then like out the other side. It was some weird terraced thing.
You were convinced it was not right. We were like in the basement of a building to get through to the other street.
Some people were pointing us like in a doorway to go like down the stairs, and we were like kind of freaked out, but we were like, all right, I guess we'll try it. And it turns out it came out into another street. It was crazy.
Should point out there's a very important rule in the race, which is you cannot have anybody lead you anywhere.
Right.
You can't say, I'm going here, can you just walk with me and show me where to go?
Yeah,
you have
so
to get
a lot
directions.
of people would like offer, they'd be like, I'll take you there, and we'd be like, you can't
do it.
Like, and trying to explain that without speaking Chinese is hard too.
That's really tough. You end up running away from people, basically.
Yeah, so we did lose some time. Who knows if
it just added to it.
If the train would have been faster, except the additional running took that away. So we got there to that area. We were running down. We saw Tyler and Corey. They had chosen the gallery painting, and they were already putting they had their paintings in the gallery, and they were arranging them at the time.
Which means they had picked up their paintings That detour was pick up your paintings, deliver it to a thing, and then hang them.
Yes.
Okay.
And so we ran past them down 2 blocks, and there was this museum, and that's where the electric unicycles were. So that's
Can I
where.
point out something else here too?
Yeah.
Another reason that led me to suggest we do the unicycles. This is the thing where preparation and overthinking, I think, hurt us. Was there was a challenge that involved paintings in a previous leg of the Amazing Race, and we had done some switchback stuff where we had repeated some challenges. There was a challenge, I can't remember what season it was, but where they were in Holland and they had to run to a painting, study it, and then come back and find out which painting matched it. That was like the Windows of the World challenge, where all the people who did that roadblock were so exhausted by the end of it. And I thought, man, this sounds simple on paper, but the part about delivering the paintings to the gallery, it's like, are we going to go back and forth to like this gallery like 5 or 6 times? So it's just like one of those things that was in my head, and it was because I knew about this other challenge.
Oh, hold that thought.
Yeah, hold that thought.
So we get to the electric unicycles. It turns out that there is a costume change. We had to put on our business suits because we were going to make a business commute.
That was pretty cool, but
we
it took
looked
some
pretty
time.
sweet. So that was like, that adds 5-10 minutes. Then we can finally get on an electric unicycle and start to ride it. And I've done surfing, I've done snowboarding, I've done a little bit of skateboarding, and none of those, and I've done paddleboarding, and none of those prepared me for an electric unicycle. None of them.
Yeah. In fact, she did the cliff jumping in Bali because we thought it was going to be a paddleboard challenge where she had to balance. Listen, our job is to run the race, and the people who make the show, it's their job to make a show. I have to admit, though, I'm a little disappointed they didn't show some of our good runs on the unicycle. I mean, I get they're trying to show we're having trouble, but there was a point in time where we were having really good runs. But this was another thing where you wouldn't think it. You think, oh, it's just a balance thing, that's it. This was another thing where the language barrier came into play because we had an instructor, and I remember I very explicitly said to the guy, he would speak to me in Chinese for almost a minute, and he'd be doing this with his hands, and I would just say to the guy, I said, I know you're trying to help me. I said, and I understand you're saying back and forth, back and forth. You can actually see me doing the back and forth. You can see me doing the back and forth thing in one of the clips.
Which, by the way, my guys were not telling me.
Yeah, and it's like, and then I was doing it, and he kept describing it, and I was like, I literally don't know. I understand you're telling me back and forth, but I don't know if you're telling me to do it or you're telling me not to do it. It was like such a simple difference that was huge. I was like, it was, one, the balance, but then it was also, once again, the language barrier of I'm taking instruction from someone that I can't communicate with. And he kept holding my hand when we were doing it, and I must have asked him like 15 times, like, can you just let go of my hand? I can't learn with you holding my hand. I'll learn better if I'm on my own. He just like kept grabbing my arm. Exactly. Or he grabbed my hand or something like that. So it was just like, I don't know, I didn't feel like we were there that long. I feel like we changed clothes as long as we were on those unicycles.
Yeah, I'd say and maybe that's what it was. One of the executive producers for the show, the co-creator, Elise, said that in an interview after the episode aired that we were there for about 40 minutes, which makes me think that 20 of that must have been changing into the costumes and changing out, because I don't feel like we were there for more than 15, 20 minutes trying it before we made the switch.
If anything, I think we bailed out too quickly, because I mean, you remember asking you like 3 or 4 times as we were going by each other in the courtyard, it's like, what do you think?
I was like, I'm not getting this.
And you said at one point it was going to take you half an hour to get it.
At least.
And then that was like, half an hour seems like an incredibly long time. Turns out it wasn't.
Also, I could have been way off. I was starting to get a little bit more comfortable, but you never know where that tipping point is going to come with something like that, where you go from, I can't do it, oh, I've got it.
I've been doing this my whole life. Yeah, you never know. And so we try to, there's a point at which I said, I'm losing stability because you were clenching it with your ankles.
And your muscles get tired.
Your muscles get tired. And I was like, I think I'm going to get worse before I get better, is what I was saying there. That was another factor where it's like, okay, let's just switch.
Yeah.
Which worked fine. We switched that detour. We really only had to go about 3 blocks to find the place where the marked paintbrush was.
And we were out of that, so we got out of
we never saw Sharon
detour.
Cole.
We got out of our clothes, we got back into our normal stuff, and we left before Sharon Cole ever got there.
Right.
So, and it must have been a little while before, because we ran back up the way we'd come. Sharon Cole also took the train.
Yeah.
So they would have been coming down that same area that we came up, and we didn't see them at all there. So
we popped our head into Tyler and Corey's art gallery because we knew where they were. And we thought the place to pick up the paintings would be close to that. And we also wanted to see if we were supposed to come back to that art gallery specifically. But everyone else had a different gallery they had to go to. You'll notice theirs is on the main street. That's actually the road we ran down to get to the courtyard where we did the unicycles. Mm-hmm. And you look at the size of that art gallery.
It's a huge gallery.
It's huge. They're like off on the side in it. There's a huge space on the floor.
the gallery that we eventually got to was so small we had to take the paintings outside to turn them around and reorient them and take them back in.
I think most of the shots that they got of us in that are from them in the alley shooting into the gallery, because it was literally just
they
like...
had to stand outside.
It was about the size of a small convention booth, is what it felt like.
Yeah.
And we couldn't even lay out all of our paintings on the floor. But that's almost like a penalty what you get for showing up and getting one of the last ones.
Yeah.
Too. But I also have to admit, it was a little bit closer than theirs, but it wasn't in a location that was easier to find.
Yeah, we found the marked paintbrush, and the guy with the marked paintbrush would take us to pick up our art, which we did. We found that very, very quickly. He gave us the art. We picked it all up. In retrospect, I probably wouldn't have done that. I probably would have left it until we got the address and knew exactly where to take it. But that's neither here nor there because it's long gone. So we picked up all of our super awkward heavy art. What?
I'm just laughing. It's like there's about 20 million what ifs over the course of the entire race. Yeah.
So we picked up our art. We start carrying it around. We have the address or the place that we're taking it, the name of the shop, and the address in Mandarin. And so we have to start asking for directions. And this is where it starts to get really confusing because this art area is not big. It's maybe 3 blocks by 3 blocks, and they're not normal size blocks. They're like little tiny, like bizarre size blocks. So we would
not a big area.
We'd go to a shopkeeper, an employee, someone who worked in that district, show them, and they would say, like, out here it's this way. And so we'd go that way for a block, not finding it. We'd ask someone else, and they'd go, this way. And so we crisscrossed that whole district so many times, carrying all these heavy, awkward paintings.
By this point, we had a strategy we're not asking anyone on the street. We would walk into a business where somebody was working. They work in that place probably 40 hours a week. They would know this area. They spend time here. Nobody knew where anything was. And even just reading an address, there's actually a behind-the-scenes video that's up on the Amazing Race YouTube channel.
It's called Walking in Circles.
It's called Walking in Circles. I'm actually grateful they posted this because you can actually see just like, to me, this was...
the beatdown.
That was the beatdown. That was the smallest part of that painting challenge, and it probably took us as long as it did to hang the actual painting just to find this art gallery.
Yeah,
I feel like if we had the one on the main road, people would go, oh, this road is right up there. It's the big road. But this was like, everyone just looked at it and just goes, that way. And then here we are. I mean, literally, it's like point this way, point that way. I think we asked in China, very easily, we asked as many or more people for directions than we did in the rest of the race combined.
Every single leg.
We probably asked 40 people for directions that day, I think. It was like, and if you look at it like being gamers, and that's what we're on the show for, if you look at a leg as like a game level, this one was designed that way, because we'll get to the pit stop in a second, but from the very get-go, you were in an amusement park where a lot of tourists were, and you had to find things. Then on the detour, you had to go and find things for the painting. You had to deliver them to a certain place. You had to ask for directions there. And then the pit stop was a bit of a misdirection, where they sent you to a building that was within a quarter mile of where the pit stop was. But then if you could find someone who knew where the library was, they could guide you to it or point you in the right direction, if you could find somebody who could do that.
Right. So it took us, let's round it down-ish maybe, and say it took us 20 minutes to find the gallery. Would you say that's accurate?
Yeah, it's hard to say because your brain just like...
Yeah, race time doesn't make any sense.
Elise said we were there for 40 minutes of the unicycles. We might have been.
It didn't feel very long, but the time...
They have watches and they're paying attention to that stuff.
Yeah.
I would guarantee that's probably correct. The important thing is we got out of the unicycles before Sharon Cole showed up.
Yeah.
So the worst case scenario, we just lost our lead going into the detour.
Right, which is never good, but you know, as we said before...
It felt like 30 minutes looking for that thing. In like a 2-block radius. In just nothing.
And you were already exhausted. You'd already been asking a bunch of people for directions in the roadblock. You know, it was a tough time. It was it was hard, but we finally...
And this is the point where I should have said, Ash, can you just find this place? Can you get somebody who can give you directions and find it? But I kept asking people, and I kept getting frustrated. And it's like, that's what was happening. It was just like, but I refused to stop asking people just because I was like, we're going to find this damn thing.
Yeah, so we finally did. It turns out it was super close to, it was like, from the square that we got the art from, it was like down one street, down one little alley, and then it was like half a block to the right.
Right.
So it wasn't far if you could just get to it. Finally, we did. It was this tiny, tiny little gallery. The lady who ran the gallery was very nice.
Sure, yeah.
She was nice.
Started to rain?
Yeah, we immediately started unwrapping the paintings. Figured out, like, as we were looking at them, like, at first we thought that we just needed to arrange them in a square because that's what the instructions said. Was
Right.
we had to hang them.
We thought it was a
and
geometric puzzle.
And the edges needed to be flush. So we thought it was a shape puzzle.
Yeah.
And we initially started laying them out that way, but noticed very quickly that there were a lot of similarities in the patterns, figured out that it was all one image, and then reorganized the puzzle.
That was you.
Yeah, and that only took...
Your brain was still working.
That only took
My brain was not working at that point. I was just hammering nails.
And so then we hung the paintings. That wasn't too tough. There were a couple of little corrections because, and this is the case with several different tasks. You don't always know what the exact criteria is that they're looking for.
Right. Till you call for your first judgment.
Yeah. One of the first examples we had with that was the first leg in Cartagena when we did the pop-up tent. And we built the tent, we put the stakes up, we put the roof on, we did all this stuff, and we were we failed out, and we didn't know why. And it turned out that the one thing they were really looking for that we had, like the one detail we'd missed, was that the middle of every cross section needed to be wired down.
Yeah, you had to wire down the tarp on the top.
And that was the one thing we missed. So in this one, we discovered after trying to pass the paintings the first time that the spacing was what they were actually looking at.
Yeah.
So we immediately made a couple adjustments. Bernie's very good at that sort of thing. Hammered the nails and.
Yeah, I was in like physical mode of just like you tell me what to do and I'll do it.
Yeah, I got to be bossy. It was awesome.
So we get out, we get our clue, and our clue this time we got the right judgment, and our clue was actually a canvas painting, an oil painting, which showed the Civic Center in Shenzhen. Massive building.
It's like the size of 5 football fields.
Which is very important. You can actually see in the episode, it's got a huge, enormous red pillar on one side and a huge, enormous yellow pillar on the other side, which is very important.
Is it yellow or is it blue? Either way, they're different colors.
It's red and yellow.
Okay.
Yeah. And anyway.
Oh, yeah, that would make a lot of sense.
Yeah, and so we had to go to this thing, and it said a bunch of stuff in Mandarin, and then it did say in English,
Shenzhen Library Terrace.
Shenzhen Library Terrace. And so we bolted out of there. According to the episode, we tore our clue. We were in 3rd place at that point. So we did leave the detour ahead of Sharing Cole. We'll never know how far in advance we left the detour in front of Sharing Cole, but we can make
some deductions.
The switch didn't put us behind. So at that point.
Not in terms of placement.
Our analysis is there was a lot of stuff that took place. I'm interrupting you. I'm sorry. Go ahead. What are you saying?
I don't remember.
Okay, so our analysis was that there was a lot of things that led to us being eliminated on this race, in this leg. But the choosing the unicycles was probably the thing that we had the most control over.
Yeah, the other things were factors of luck. Things like getting accurate directions from people, that sort of thing. That's not something that you can control. You just do your best and hope the dice are in your favor. In this case, we asked so many people and they just weren't. So that is the one thing we could have done is just skip the other detour.
It's one choice we could have made that would have eliminated an entire block of time on the day.
Yeah. But one of the things that you said that made me okay with switching to the electric unicycles on the train was you didn't come to China to sit in a gallery and hang paintings.
Yeah, that's true too.
That's
a factor in it.
That we wanted to go to China. It was very exciting. This is a bucket list country for us. Always wanted to visit. And it would suck to go all the way to China and then just be inside a building hanging paintings for a while. So
after we had run around in a park with a bunch of monuments from other parts of the world.
Yeah. So we wanted to try something that was kind of fun. And the electric unicycle sounded risky, but they did sound fun.
They sound fun. Yeah.
So that was one of the other reasons that I was okay with switching was let's try something. Let's at least try something fun.
So Sherry and Cole at this point in time, as far as we know, are practicing the unicycles and practicing. They're having the same discussion of should we just give up? It looks like they had a discussion 4 or 5 times. It was daunting, but they stuck with it. They were mastering it. They started doing the course. We're in the taxi going, and we're just going to this big building. Then we hit a massive amount of traffic on the way.
Because of that
Rain
marathon.
And rush hour.
Now, it turns out that the marathon, that it also shut down the streets all around Lychee Park, that marathon, I believe, started at the Civic Center.
Great. So that's what all that stuff was.
That's what all that stuff was.
That makes sense.
Right? So
There was like a huge. I thought it was a festival of some kind because the whole courtyard on one side of the Civic Center was like barricaded off, and they had stands.
and it was
all
in
that
the
other stuff.
process of being torn down.
Yes, and the Civic Center, by the way, looks like an Amazing Race pit stop. That's the other hard part about it.
so hard.
It looks exactly like it should.
Yeah.
Okay. Go.
So we hit traffic, and we were in the taxi, and we were agonizing, like, should we get out and run? Because we asked the taxi driver, and as best we could, given the fact that we didn't speak any Mandarin and he didn't speak any English, came to the understanding that it was if we take the next right, and then it's just
We
down
could
the
see
road
the
that
building.
way.
It was enormous.
Yeah, you could see the roof of the building, and
Yeah.
so we thought we're close. We're very, very close, and
We're just sitting in a car.
We would die
dead
if
still.
we were sitting in a car and Sherry and Cole ran past us and ran to the mat, and we were just sitting in a car like idiots. So
And so I gotta say too, this is another thing where I should have said, I was pushing to get out of the cab a little bit. I feel like, and I said, do you want to do that? And you said, are you sure? And I said, no, I'm not. You can tell in the episode, I said, I'm not sure, but I don't know what else to do. And so we made the decision. We jumped out of the cab and we ran to the Civic Center.
yeah, and we didn't. It was not a long run. It was.
Not for this. No, not for the
not
Amazing
for that
Race.
part. It was about 2 blocks, and
Yeah.
so once we found the Civic Center, and we ran up to it, and that's when we started consulting the painting that we had, and it's very telling when you see from the painting, the red pillar is on one side, the blue pillar is on the other side.
pillar.
So yellow. I'm sorry.
That's okay.
The yellow pillar is on the other side. So really the first thing that we tried to do was go to the perspective where that painting was made from.
We want to match the view in the painting to the actual building.
So if we held it up, what we'd be seeing is, like, we could hold it up and that's the view. So we went to that spot, and
that exact
exact spot.
side.
That was not the spot.
It was the opposite side of the building.
That was where the where the marathon stuff was. So there were a bunch of old stalls and stuff that were being in the process of being torn down as we're running through it. And so that's when we start asking everybody, where is this? And we're pointing to the text. We didn't.
Most of it is written in Mandarin.
Most of it's written in Mandarin. There's a picture of the building, and then underneath it says Shenzhen Library Terrace. So we're running around asking everyone where stuff is. Some of them are pointing it's here, because they were clearly looking at the picture.
Yeah, I can show you this. This is the
see
building here. I don't know if you can see. Oh, check out the lights.
So
you can see.
red here and yellow here.
So the orientation of the building was very easy to figure out. But if you just look at this, look at the size of the building. These are skyscrapers next to it. So if you're trying to find a pit stop that's close to this building, it's as likely it's in this skyscraper as it is in one of these skyscrapers. These are equally as close to this building. It is a massive distance that this building covers.
That is an impressive architectural accomplishment.
Yeah. And that's actually, I think this is actually the view because those are the stairs.
Yeah, those are the stairs up. So we ran around asking people where stuff was. No one could give us a really clear answer.
Probably because they were all with the marathon and they were all visiting. Now that I think about it.
Probably.
Yeah.
And so at one point we ran to the entrance, which is actually kind of underground. It's in an underpass because actually streets run through this complex because that's how big it is.
Sure.
And we went there. We looked at the map, and I was like, I don't see a library anywhere on here. I don't know what's wrong.
There was a museum of industry.
There was
a couple of museums in
of
it.
different businesses in there because it's a civic center, and so we knew something was wrong, but we didn't know what was wrong. So we went inside to the security guard.
Always going to ask somebody who works there. That always seems to us to be the smartest thing to do.
Yeah.
Because people who work there know. Ladies with headset leading tour guides, they should know.
Right. We figured they come here every day. They probably know the area. They've got to walk around to go to lunch.
It might be their
that
job
sort of
to know.
stuff.
Right.
And so we're asking security guards. We're asking anyone who looks like staff. No one can help us.
The security guard was the very last person we asked. There was a security guard.
He was the second to last person we asked.
Well, that was the security guard was here at a desk, and I showed him the thing, and I said, "We're trying to find library here, trying to find this," and he would point at the building on the paper and go, "You're here, here." It's no, library. We're trying to find this library, but I didn't know what part of the Mandarin said library.
Right.
So it's we're trying to find the library, And he just goes like this, and we're like, and his security guard.
We're just like
and I was
dying.
like, and at this point, we probably had looked for the pit stop after getting out of the taxi.
It had been at least a half hour at this point.
It was 30 to 40 minutes. And Dana and Matt did the exact same thing we did. They went on that side. They tried to line up the painting. They spent forever looking for it as well.
And the confusing thing is, this building also had a terrace. So, if you ask someone where the terrace is, they were pointing up because there was a terrace, and the terrace ran. It was like a quarter-mile terrace. It was just this long, beautiful terrace that went off to a park.
Yeah.
And so at one point when we were looking, we had gone up to that terrace, ran all the way down to the park because we saw some people working down there.
We saw a news crew, which we thought was,
So we had to run all the way down and then no pit stop there and run all the way back. We finally asked the security guy. He has no idea. And then we hear...
Yeah, but by this point, too, I want to point out that we were looking for the pit stop for so long. I went from thinking, are we going to finish last, to are we going to finish? Are we ever going to find this pit stop? It was so discouraging.
The worst thing that can happen in the race, the absolute worst thing that can happen to you is Phil coming to find you.
You have taken so long to finish the leg that Phil leaves the mat and comes to find you on the course and says...
And eliminate you.
All the teams have checked in, you're eliminated. So we were actually thinking we had looked for the pit stop for so long at this point that was it. So we asked the security guard, he didn't know. I hit my limit. I almost turned to Ashley and I said, I don't think we're going to make it. Like, I was ready to turn to her and say that when all of a sudden...
We hear someone go, can I help you?
Dude.
Oh my God.
This guy, I don't know who this guy was, but he's like an angel. Yeah. He just goes, I'm sorry. He goes, can I help you? He goes, pardon me, can I help you? And we looked over and there's this guy and speaks perfect English. And I said, we are desperately trying to find this. He goes, that is the library. You want to go out here, go to the right. It's right over there. That guy was like... As soon as we found that guy, we ran straight to the library terrace.
We were
Sherry
there.
and Cole were there.
Yeah, we were there within 2 to 3 minutes.
Yep, it was just like
we ran straight there. And it turns out it's this beautiful black building 2 blocks away. And the terrace has a lovely view of where we were running around like crazy people. But you can see in the episode, Sherry and Cole get out of their taxi. Their taxi driver drove them up to the library, this black building they're running along, and there's a sign in English that says Shenzhen Library.
Yeah.
And it's like they got out of their taxi and they heard the drums. That's how close they were when they got dropped off. God only knows if we had stayed in our taxi, if he would have taken us. He could have taken us to that same spot, or he could have done what Dana and Matt's taxi did and taken them to the Civic Center.
That's absolutely true. So it's like we kind of second-guess ourselves. Probably not doing the detour with the unicycles was probably the thing we had the most control over. But the second biggest decision I think we made the entire day was getting out of the cab.
Yeah.
Because really looking for the pit stop, we knew we came out of the detour ahead of Sherry and Cole. Looking for the pit stop was where we lost that race.
Yeah.
You know?
So after we got those wonderful, clear directions, we ran straight to the library, came around the corner, and we could see the red.
And I did make the joke, like, a lot of people thought, well, Burnie's so optimistic that they might even be in first. It's like, I wasn't optimistic at all. That was a total joke. You can hear me laughing when I'm saying it.
We'd seen Tyler and Corey leave the detour as we were starting the painting part. As we were still looking for the gallery, we were carrying paintings they were leaving.
Which was probably at that point like an hour and a half earlier. So I didn't think it took them an hour and a half to find the pit stop. So yeah, we had a pretty good feeling at this point. We were beat down. We had a feeling that we were definitely last place. Now we did think there was a possibility, and there was a lot of speculation among the racers that this would be a non-elimination leg, and they would do a 4-person final.
Because they've done that before.
They have done that before.
Season
a 4-team final.
And they might have done it 26 as well. I can't remember exactly, but they've done it before. So
yeah, they did it with the dentists, and
that's more like the hope that you hold on to when you know you're in last.
Sure,
it's like maybe it's not elimination.
You do, yeah. But we ran up the stairs. There's a really cool Chinese dragon that was there.
Yeah,
dancers, and then Phil was there.
Took
all
one
the
look
other teams
at Phil,
were there.
and it was like, nope, it's not.
And it was like by that point, the slowest I moved in the whole race was with walking to that mat at the end. I don't think I've walked anywhere the entire time, and it's like I just walked up to that mat. Phil told us we were eliminated, and Sharon Cole, Tyler and Corey, Dana and Matt are off to the finals, which are this week. It's,
they're this
Friday
week.
night.
Although we did make it to the, we make it to the finish line before they do.
I think it took us as long to describe what happened in this leg is longer than actually watching the show. So isn't that funny?
No, that is absolutely accurate. That's how long it takes.
So let's take some real quick questions from the audience. Do you have any final thoughts about it? I was disappointed to lose the race, But I felt very grateful that I got to go through every foreign country. We got to go through all the countries in the race, and we did it together. I mean, it was bittersweet to go home, but it was like knowing that we made it that far was the most important thing to me. And I know we didn't get any first place finishes and win any prizes. The second place is honestly, they kept us in the race, and staying in the race to me was the best experience and the best adventure I could ever experience.
That was the prize for us.
Right.
We're very competitive. I think it comes with the territory of being a gamer. You're used to like playing against people and you want to win. And so we did have those second place finishes, and they get a little bit frustrating when you think, if only I'd done this, if I'd been a little bit faster or a little bit better, we could have gotten that first. But ultimately, the seconds kept us in the race, and it was great going all the way around the world, going to every country, ticking off bucket list items like
Absolutely.
China. And so that was fantastic. And I'm really grateful that we did it. And I'm grateful that I did it with you.
I'm grateful I did it with you too.
You're my buddy.
It was a blast. It was an absolute blast. And if they said, "Hey, go on, there's another amazing race tomorrow. You got to leave right now. Wearing the clothes you're wearing," would you go?
Yes.
Change boots. That's about it.
I mean, if I have to go in this, I'll go anyway. But I'd like to put on some tennis shoes.
I'm gonna ask you a lightning round of questions from Twitter, if you will.
Go.
Super serious question from Melissa Dunn.
Super serious face.
She said, "Super serious question. What did you do for bathroom breaks?"
I went while you were running around like a crazy person doing the roadblock. But the real answer is don't take them. If you're waiting for a flight, go ahead. If someone else is doing a roadblock and you have the opportunity, go ahead and do it. If it means stopping in a race, don't do it. Skip it. A team in season 14 got eliminated because they stopped to take a bathroom break.
Crazy. I never even thought about it.
And that cost them the race. Really, when you get going like that, your body cooperates, and I don't know, I felt like my body just like shut all that down.
Does.
I didn't get I guess I did get thirsty, but like I didn't get hungry. I didn't notice anything. The adrenaline was so high at all times, and we're so focused that the rest of it kind of falls away.
So Scott, Blair's dad, who's a medical doctor, he explained to me something which I found fascinating. When we got back, we didn't spend any time in what they call the sequester house, where they put all the contestants after eliminated.
Right.
We left from China straight to the U.S. for the finish line because we're all on the finish line for the finale. That's the way the show works. But we saw all the teams right on our way out to the finish line to greet the winners. And Scott was telling me pretty much everybody, the day after they got done with the race, almost to a team, everybody got sick 24 hours after they were done with the race. Because you're running around the world, you're super stressed, and your immune system just kind of goes shut down for emergency mode. And all the things that we associate with sickness are like symptoms of your immune system fighting it off, like getting, phlegm or, your nose running or throwing up or any fever. Yeah. So, but you don't have those things, but you're still getting all the germs and everything. And so the moment you get out of that stressful situation, your immune system kicks in and you get violently sick. And so many people got so sick afterwards. We were fortunate we didn't have to deal with that. Yeah. I mean, I think we did a good job of staying hydrated and taking vitamins and stuff like that.
We were careful about what we ate.
Yeah. But I never heard that before. It was fascinating to me.
No, that makes a lot of sense, actually. I'd wondered what that was, but when he explained it, it made perfect sense.
Okay. This is a great question from Whitney K. Burnie and Ashley, how long did it take you to recover from the race after you came home?
Oh, my God.
Ashley went to bed for a day and a half.
Yeah, I slept for at least 26 hours.
Straight.
Got up, went to the bathroom, drank some water, went back to bed, and slept another 12 hours.
I'm not ashamed to admit there was a point in that 26-hour period when you were asleep when I went and checked your breathing. I just wanted to make sure that you were still alive. I held my hand near your face to make sure you're okay.
I was so exhausted.
It was very exhausting.
It took weeks for me to come back up, even to 90%. I was just so tired all the time. I'd wake up for a couple of hours, putter around the house a little bit, mostly just sitting down, going, what did we just do? And then go to sleep again for another 12 hours.
And we were back, on the race and then back in the office within 2 days. Mm-hmm. Because, we ran right up until the end. And I remember it was Matt when he saw us when we got back. He's like, you guys look gaunt. He goes, you look like you've wasted away doing this thing. Are you okay? And I was like, yeah. And I think I added 10 pounds in a week and a half after we got back from the race. I had just shed water weight and everything else. It was pretty nuts. Okay. Ashley from Lori Berry, how hard was it not to spoil the show when talking to people about it?
It's not hard to not want to spoil the show, but it can be difficult trying to make sure you word things in a way that's ambiguous enough and that you don't, without meaning to, drop hints about what's coming.
Okay. Here's another question.
Okay.
This young lady would like to know, how did you do your makeup for the race?
I had
spit there, by the way. That's awesome.
Yeah, that's how I did it. Just spit all over it. I got some waterproof makeup from MAC. They had like a waterproof foundation and powder and a waterproof eyeliner and mascara, and that was my base. That's my base. I actually look a little bit rough throughout the whole race because it's so hard to keep makeup on when you're going for 14 hours at a time. Mm-hmm. But
I believe
I'm okay with that. Race is worth it.
Drea Alghul, I believe, is who asked that.
Okay.
So I kind of lost that question after I looked it up. The other question is, what was the most important thing that you learned on the race?
I learned that you and I are great travel buddies.
Yep.
And that there's no one that I would want to do something that intense and that stressful with. Just you.
I do too. I think we got a reputation for being a very analytical team while in the race, so it's hard not to turn that analysis on myself, now that we've been eliminated. And I think that maybe more than anything else is like making sure stop and in situations and realize when I've hit my limits and turn the reins over to you and just commit to that decision. I think that's something I definitely learned.
And stop running ahead, Burnie.
Stop running ahead. I don't think I ever learned that. I would always bolt.
If I'd been ahead of you, I could have asked people directions in China, but you always got there ahead of me and stopped someone.
Yeah, and it's
you just need to not be fast.
Yeah, the solution on the race to a lot of problems is let's just start running, and that's not the solution to stuff.
Well, there's this pressure that if you're sitting still, if you're not doing something, if you're not moving, you're losing.
Move.
That someone else is moving and that you're losing ground. And that's not always the case. Sometimes the best thing you can do is sit still. And look at Sherry and Cole. They were so smart. They trusted their taxi. They trusted it was going to take them where they were going, and it did.
It was funny, too, because I said to Ash, we're going to see this episode, we're going to be in our cab, and I know we're going to be analyzing and debating, should we get out of the cab, should we stay in the cab? I said, I bet we watch Sherry and Cole in their cab, and they're just happy and going along and not even thinking about getting out of the cab. At least in terms of the episode, there was no discussion about them getting out of the cab. They just stayed in their cab and went all the way. So that was the last decision I think we made that could have made the difference for us.
Yeah.
So anyway, the finals are this week. Tyler and Corey are in it. They're the team with the highest average finish. Then Dana and Matt, the dancers, and Sherry and Cole, who set a record. 2 records set. We finished the race as the team with the highest average that never came in first place.
Like the highest finishing average.
The highest finishing average for a team that never came in first place. And Sherry and Cole are the lowest finishing team that made the final 3.
Ever.
In
the history of the race.
The way Sherry said it was, she's like, of the last legs of the race, she's like, we've come in second to last for the last 3 or 4 legs. It's really interesting to think on the cusp going into the finals with that.
They came in second to last on our leg too.
And I'll say too that Sherry, she's as awesome as she appears on TV. She's
wonderful.
Super upbeat. She's happy. She sticks with things. She's just having the time of her life on it. And I remember she said to me in China, she's like, people are going to be so mad at us. They're going to hate us because of the non-elimination legs. And I was like, Sherry, no.
Sherry, no one's going to care about
People are going to love you guys. They're going to be so happy. And it's true. It's I think a lot of people recognize them turning the corner and coming up those steps is one of
the greatest moments in race history, probably.
It sucks that we're on the other end of it, but as a fan, it's yeah, that's a really cool moment,
We helped make that happen.
Is that we're going to take credit for it?
Yeah. Look, we've got to do something.
So we said on the mat, they asked us, who do you think is going to win the race? What did we say? They asked us to talk about the other race. So we're going to talk about this from the perspective of what we said on the mat.
Where we were at the time mentally standing on the mat. No spoilers for the finale coming up. At the mat, we said, statistically, Tyler and Corey.
We immediately said Tyler and Corey.
They've won at this point.
They've crushed it.
At this point, they'd won, 5 legs? 6 legs?
Yeah. They won 2 in Bali, and they won China. They won 3 of the last 3 legs.
They'd won 2 or 3 in a row at least. And so they just had all this momentum. They had a couple bad legs behind them.
Which is important.
And
if you can survive your bad legs, that's important.
Right. We did not survive our bad legs.
That is correct. Dana and Matt, we said, they won the very first leg. They could possibly bookend it and win the second one.
And they were
last one.
they were also the only team that was going into the finals who hadn't used a special game piece, like either a non-elimination finish or an express pass or a U-turn. They used
nothing.
They were the only team who used none of that and was still there in the finals.
We also, though, were pretty critical of their strategy. I remember at that point in time because I was like, I didn't understand why the dancers were helping what was clearly a stronger team than them go to the finals. Like I just didn't get that. Like, what was the end game of that? So anyway, and then Sherry and Cole, it's like our analysis of them is they just refuse to die.
Yeah. They're the
like,
little engine that could.
They are the Energizer Bunny. They just keep going, and it's like they stay upbeat.
You also described them as Pepe Le Pew because it doesn't seem like they're going anywhere.
It doesn't seem like they're moving at full speed.
Yeah, it's like it seems like they're just sort of like going along, and yet they seem to get there ahead of people every time.
So funny.
And so if that keeps going for them, and they've by far most improved team. At the very beginning of the race, they seemed very fish out of water, very uncertain, and by this point, they were full steam ahead. So it's actually a really exciting final three, in my opinion.
Any final thoughts on our leg and the penultimate leg of the Amazing Race 28?
I learned a lot. I feel challenged as a human being and trying to turn something like that defeat into something good.
She's been studying Mandarin and she ordered a unicycle.
I ordered a unicycle. We're gonna, what we're gonna do? I think we should make an RT Life of learning to ride the unicycle and see who else around this office can learn to ride the electric unicycle.
I'll tell you what's a great idea to do with that unicycle.
Beat it up.
Beat the shit out of it and throw it off a bridge. That's what I'm gonna do. All right, thanks everybody. We'll talk to you. Ashley and I are gonna be gone next week, but we'll be back with some kind of recap for the finale once season 28 of The Amazing Race is over. But thank you to everybody who supported us. Thanks for helping us get our team name trending on Twitter. That was really awesome. You guys have been incredible the entire time we ran through this race, and this was an amazing experience. We, would do it again in a heartbeat.
Yeah, and watch the finale with us on Friday.
Yeah, do it. Thanks everybody.